And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Happy Monday to everybody. How are you going? How are you doing over there, Ben?
Doing well, you?
Yeah, I'm good. Living the dream.
Yeah?
DJ and PK left the room, and I'm only slightly more angry than I was because now that enough time has passed since I was telling them old stories, and now that enough time has passed, it's funny rather than
Sure.
Angry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have situations like that where at the time you were quite angry?
Of course.
And then 5 years, but this is the best part about getting older, perspective. 10 years pass and you can go okay, that was really fun.
Rode out the wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, this was funny and that was funny.
As they say, this too shall pass. And it does. And then, look back and hopefully you're not vengeful.
No, I was yeah. I was telling an old radio stories because radio's kind of a wild world. You know what? Honestly, the vision of KSL Sports has been really awesome, and working here has been really awesome because it feels like we're really going forward. We're really investing, believe, all that stuff.
Right.
That hasn't always been true in
Correct.
my career.
Correct. Yeah, of course.
Oh, man.
Sometimes you know the clock's running out. And that's the goal.
Well, I don't know. It's funny. You don't always know what's real and what's not, like what the clock is, what the clock isn't.
Yeah.
What your goal is, what your goal's not. But yeah, good times. I love it. We've got exciting things happening here at the KSL Sports Zone, KSL Sports in this building. It's great. And it's great to come to a building that has good vibes because that hasn't always been true in my career either.
Absolutely.
All right. How was your weekend, Ben? You do all right?
Busy, but good. Nice to have some warm weather.
The weather was incredible. We went skiing on Saturday just like everybody else in the valley.
Oh, I believe it.
And it didn't matter how crowded it was. It was so good. The sun was out. It was the best. In my opinion, it was the best type of Utah skiing day. Now, the POW hounds will probably argue with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The real spring skiers, the bikini people, probably would argue with me. But sun out, comfortable temperature. It had snowed within, it wasn't fresh, but it had snowed all week, basically. So it was nice and soft. It was like, yeah, this is it. This is the Utah ski day. It was awesome.
I like a groomed run.
Oh, yeah.
Personally.
Oh, you're not a big POW hound?
No.
No?
Too much work.
It is a lot of work.
Yeah.
That is true. But it is fun. So that was great. So hopefully everybody enjoyed the warm weather. Christian, you get outside?
No, I did the opposite. I did an escape room on Friday night with some
How'd that
friends.
go?
That was pretty cool. I had never done one before, so we almost made the leaderboard. We missed out on the leaderboard by like 2 minutes.
Is that per day or for all time or what?
Couldn't tell you. I'd like to tell myself all time.
All time, yeah. But it might have been for like the last 45 minutes.
Could have been. They say that this room that I did had like a 20% success rate.
Oh, and you guys got out.
We got out. We made it.
Okay.
Wow, good for you. Can I tell you that I have no desire to do that ever? No, I get why it's fun. I get why you'd want to do it. I'm just talking about me personally. Because I don't know if you both know this, but I am oblivious. Completely oblivious. And so it would be so maddening to have a situation where being oblivious completely worked against you. There's no way I'd make it out. There's no way I'd help a team. I wouldn't come up with anything useful. I would be so inept in that circumstance that I feel like it would be really frustrating for me personally.
Did it feel logical, each step?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little corny, but Yeah, because it was themed. So it was like you're in like a cabin and there's like a killer who's going to be there in an hour and you have to get out of the cabin.
Then let's just up the anxiety. Yeah, no.
Yeah, right. Should be a chainsaw that slowly gets closer.
Yeah, you could like hear noises and stuff.
Nope.
It was pretty intense. It was cool though.
Not for me.
That. I'm into that. Yeah, I should take my kids. Not to the chainsaw part, but yeah, something else. Unicorns coming or whatever. Build-A-Bear's going to close or something. You got to get out of the mall.
Build-A-Bear's going to close? Unicorns coming. Yeah, I don't think that creates the anxiety.
Sure.
Quite that like Chainsaw Murderer and in a cabin in the woods does.
Fine, we'll hang. We'll wait
like Christian can never go to a cabin in the woods ever again.
Yeah, it's true.
Or at least for a while, let that settle for a minute.
Well, we survived, so we know that we could.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if that's directly applicable. All I know is you're going to be in a cabin in the woods.
Don't worry, honey.
Every creek out there.
I once got out of an escape room.
I got this.
They said there's only a 20% success rate, and I made it out, and we were within 2 minutes of the leaderboard.
So
I know this is an emergency.
We got it.
You're in good hands.
We're going to make this happen. All right. Well, that's nice. Ben, where do you want to start today? We're in the middle of a Sunday, Monday back-to-back.
Yeah.
Which is now a thing. And the Jazz are playing against who I think is still the hands-down favorite in the NBA.
Assuming they're healthy, agreed.
We could certainly talk about that. We did have a BYU Utah game over the weekend, and we are going into the conference tournament. So we got a lot.
Alex Jensen just got hired. Not that the news beyond, it sounds like he's going to stick with Dallas through the end of the year, which I think is a huge mistake. But
I don't know why he'd do that.
Yeah. Dallas isn't going anywhere. Dallas is trying to tank. You're not developing these players anymore. I get maybe there's some loyalty, some honor in sticking through at the job, and they've already lost an assistant coach. So what?
Maybe he wants the money.
You got a lot of work. He's making more money at Utah. You think he's doubling up?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Think he's on hard times?
You can
needs to work overtime?
Ben, you can appreciate the value of $1.
I can, but my understanding, talking to every coach I've ever talked to, is that it's hell. You're working nonstop, and now he's trying to do it for two different teams.
I would guess it has some sort of like something to do with his reputation.
Okay.
Like it matters how you leave jobs.
Potentially.
And so if Jason Kidd's like, I need you, big guy.
I'd be more worried about how I started the next job, especially when the job is taking over a University of Utah program.
I've seen that bite people.
I think going down to college, back to the NBA, I don't know. I guess it's possible. I would be more focused on what my next job is going to be now that I'm a college basketball head coach with a team that's going to undergo probably an entire overhaul.
I hear you, but if he does want to go back to the NBA someday, leaving an intact reputation is probably a good thing.
Sure.
Because when my next team calls Dallas and said, what'd you think of this guy? I don't want him to say, oh, let me tell you how badly he left. That's never a good thing.
Sure, I get it. I think his success is going to be, his future success is going to be, or future higher ability is going to be based on the success he has at Utah.
What he's got to do right now is put together a staff. Because if his staff is doing all the work, then who cares?
Sure.
And so that, I think, is the most relevant thing when it comes to the Alex Jensen situation is who is he going to hire? I'm surprised that hires haven't happened already, honestly.
But you're raising cash. You're meeting with recruits. Bobby Hurley's on 60 Minutes talking about half of his team is transferred already, even though the season is still going on, and they've met with their next team, and they know how much money they're going to get paid. So is it Bobby or is it Dan? UConn. Dan, excuse me. Dan's, talking about that already. So if if I were at Utah, I would want Alex Jensen to be at home already.
Yeah, fine, but they don't care. They're not going to draw that line in the sand.
Clearly not. No.
No, I don't think him finishing out the year in Dallas is a Utah decision.
Agreed. No, it's an Alex decision.
Probably came up during contract discussions
Absolutely.
as well.
100%.
Right. No. But this is a thing for him. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I don't think Utah's like, no, please finish the season in Dallas.
Right. They want him here, I'm sure.
Here's what he should have done yesterday, in my opinion. Maybe he did. I don't know, because maybe this isn't a really public hire. I'd find my assistant or my general manager or whatever title you want to give the person on the ground. The one calming the players that are there, the one still keeping irons in the fire or putting irons in the fire or figuring out who's going to transfer and who's not and figuring out the league and all the things. The person on the ground who does the legwork. The person on staff who really hits the ops side of things hard. He needs to hire that. He should have hired it yesterday. That's who. That's the type of maneuver. Like Alex Jensen, yes, physically in the office, not coaching the Dallas Mavericks is probably what's best for the basketball program. But if this is how it's going to work, he's got to get his staff together
pronto,
immediately.
According to Steve Bartle, our University of Utah insider, Alex Jensen, who is going to finish the season with the Mavericks, flew to Kansas City last night after the Dallas Mavericks game to meet with Utah players and staff in person ahead of the Big 12 tournament and was told it went well. Steve was told it went well.
Oh, well, I'm sure he was told it went well, yeah. But what does that meeting look like?
No, as soon as these guys leave or get eliminated from the Big 12 tournament, with all due respect to the University of Utah, who I think has actually had a better season than I expected, all these guys are, on the phone with their parents or agents or other head coaches to figure out where they're going to go.
We should, I don't know, we should find this old tape somewhere, but do you remember the speech Dion gave when he was in a similar circumstance?
Where?
Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
Where he walked in and he's like, I'm going to cut,
Yeah, you're all gone.
all of you guys.
I'm bringing my own baggage, and it's all Louis.
I'm bringing my own guys. You're all pretty much going to be gone. I don't even know why I'm wasting my time being here. Like, what are the odds Alex Jensen retains somebody on the current staff? Not in the ops side, but retains somebody
Coaching staff?
actually on the current
I'd be
staff.
surprised if he keeps one. He might keep one person around.
I doubt it.
He might like to have somebody who's got the understanding of the inner workings, and I'm actually not all that familiar with Utah's coaching staff behind Craig Smith and, who's there. And I know the guy who was the interim at West Virginia is the head coach now, interim also. But I wouldn't be surprised if he keeps one person around.
I'd be shocked if he kept one person around.
We got a few positions already taken care of because I'm bringing my luggage with me.
That's right.
And it's Louis. Okay.
I like the person laughing who's filming. You can kind of hear them laughing.
Man. How many people in that room had already started texting whoever else was recruiting them, be like, hey.
Yeah.
I just heard from Coach Prime. I was pretty excited about it going into the room. Coming out of the room, I don't think I'm going to be here for very much longer.
Oh, I lie. He really wants me, but I can be had for a certain dollar amount.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like $4. Whatever you have to offer. How'd you know? This is the exact price.
I'm going to get cut tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'm coming. Because some Louis Vuitton luggage is coming to town, I think.
Who's this Louis everybody's talking about?
Yeah, I'm sure Alex came out of that meeting thinking like, oh, yeah, that went well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know what he's going to hold over. I would guess mostly he's going to start anew.
Mostly, yeah. I would imagine.
So, I mean, player retention was probably pretty important to him. If there's someone on the squad that he wants to keep, and I would guess he doesn't want to entirely start over. Like, who was it at Utah State that basically entirely started over? Was it Sprinkle?
I think
who
so.
had no returning minutes? Or was it Odom who had no return? It was Sprinkle who had no returning minutes. I mean, I would guess he doesn't want to do that. So, yeah, player retention was probably his number one priority, but I don't know. Define went well.
Yeah. Right. He got a sense of, everyone was cordial.
I bet you $1 zillion every single one of those players came out of that meeting calling whomever and seeing what their options are. But that's what everybody does, so that's nothing new.
And Alex is just, again, Alex early on is going to have to win by coaching. He's not going to win by getting huge recruits. Huge recruits aren't going to Utah. Utah doesn't have the money or the reputation right now. So they're not going there. You might be able to generate a little bit of excitement for kids in high school locally who are Utah fans, whose dad was a big fan of Alex Jensen or mom was a big fan of the Final Four team. Says, yeah, man, this guy's the real deal. And he's coached Rudy, he's coached Derek Lively, he's coached with Quinn Snyder, he's coached with Rick Majerus, he's coached with Jason Kidd. You should go there and see if you can go and get, a 4-star local high school recruit. One of these kids who went to the academies here locally and wants to stay in state and maybe wants to buck the trend of going to BYU where it seems a lot of these kids are going, or doesn't get the offer from BYU that he was hoping for financially. You might get one or two of those kids, but he's going to have to find players that can run a system that he thinks can win and win that way. I just don't think it's going to be overwhelming anybody with talent.
Yeah, I don't either. So that's why I'm super curious to see what stage in Alex's career that he decides to lean into as now the head coach at Utah. Is it St. Louis, Alex Jensen? Is it Utah as a player, Alex Jensen?
Yeah.
Is it Utah Jazz, Alex Jensen? Or even now Dallas Mavericks, I suppose, but I lump that in with the entire professional experience.
The one through line is defense with Alex, right? He was a spectacular defensive player in college, spectacular professional defensive player overseas. Coach Rudy Gobert, who's one of the greatest defensive players in NBA history. Coach Derek Lively and Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd's a great defensive coach as well. That's the through line to me throughout. Even though Quinn Snyder was a much better offensive coach, I think, than defensive, I think Alex's main job was working with Rudy, and Rudy was a much better defensive player. Now, he figured out how to do some things offensively, catch lobs, set picks, etc. But the defense is going to be the through line. And that's what I would expect him to do. Go find a bunch of dogs on defense and make it hell to play at Utah. And I think that's a great approach if you can do it. But generally, great defensive players don't seem to get paid as much. In any sport. Don't look at the defensive ends right now in the NFL. They're getting a ton of money. I should say in basketball, at any level, college or pro, defensive guys are traditionally undervalued and underpaid. And I'd go and look for those guys.
All right, stay tuned. We'll get to top 3 stories of the day, KSLSports.com. Coming up next, it's Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
BYU beating Iowa State. I want to say I'm sorry because I just didn't believe it was going to happen.
It's the biggest win for BYU in the Big 12. Iowa State, if the tournament was seeded today, would be on the 2 line. They showed they could beat a team that's at that level. They can go head-to-head with that team. Not only go head-to-head with them, but they can lead them by 21 points in their building. You're not going to have to play a team on the 2 seed in the tournament in their building.
Right.
And you came away victorious even after blowing that 21-point lead. BYU passed the toughness test. If you watch that game, you saw how physical the top teams in the Big 12 are, but BYU turned the ball over 29 times. It wasn't perfect. They found a way to survive in a game like that by playing tough.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Ben, today is Monday, but you can win big every Wednesday on the station with Win Ticket Wednesday. This week, you can win tickets to go see Pantera, the heaviest tour of the summer, August 20th at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. Get your tickets now at livenation.com or listen all day on Wednesday for your chance to win. Time now for the top 3 stories of the day at KSLSports.com, brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. Explore their expertly crafted engagement rings made from the finest materials. J. Brooks Jewelers. All right, Christian, where are we starting today?
Number 1, the Jazz get a little taste of what they hope this youth movement can become. They're at the Celtics tonight.
Tell me the 76ers are not championship contenders?
They were supposed to be,
They
but
were.
Unfortunately, no.
Well, the big story really over the last week for the Jazz is that in their last 5 games, they played 3 of the 7 worst teams in the league. And actually, it may have been 4, I guess. It was 4 of the worst teams because they played the Raptors, played the Pelicans, they played the 76ers, and they played the Wizards. Not in that order. And they lost all of them. Which, look, if you're going to get a bad or a good draft pick and you're going to have a bad record, you've got to lose those games. As brutal as that is, as much as fans may not like it, that's the game. That's the way it is laid out. That's how they reward you in the NBA. And the Jazz have done that, and now they go into a much more difficult stretch of their schedule. In fact, the last 18 games, only 3 teams that they're playing the rest of the way are not going to be fighting for either play-in tournament spots or playoff seeding. You've got Toronto again, you've got Washington again, and then you've got Charlotte again on the road.
Well, that's good news for me because maybe they'll play more players and make things a little more interesting.
I would expect to see more healthy bodies tonight.
Can I ask you an overall NBA question? Because honestly, I had my fill talking about the 76ers last night.
Sure.
And tonight.
You just want to get off talking about Jared Butler, which I was going to
You know what I thought
you
about
wanted
you?
to avoid how well Jared Butler played and that guy is a star in the making, just like I said 5 years ago.
15-9.
He looked good.
Yeah, and
He
you
played
know
some
what?
defense.
You know what's funny about that, though? Is you know who's playing in those games? Players that help you lose.
Yeah. No, I looked down the bench.
Jared Butler was getting the spotlight because it's like, oh, I got to drop this one. Hey, Jared.
JB.
Get in there and dribble.
29 minutes tonight.
Yeah, go make it happen. But no, I did think of you the entire game because he did play well.
So, anyways, you were moving on in big picture NBA. Sorry to derail you with our star, Jared Butler.
That's funny. I'm glad you brought that up. Are the 76ers the biggest story in the NBA negatively over the whole season?
There are two teams in this conversation.
There are
it's
two.
The Sixers and the Suns.
And three then, because you got to throw the Mavs in there.
Oh, yeah, the Mavs now.
Because they've had the worst month, certainly.
Mavs have had the worst second half of the season.
The overall biggest story negatively, is it, I don't think it's hands down the Mavs. It could be the Sixers. It could be the Suns for sure.
There's a chance 12 months from now we're still reeling from how bad this Sixers season is, and we haven't realized it yet because Joel Embiid is on the verge of a medical retirement, and they paid him in September.
Handsomely.
They gave him more money in September. Paul George has been one of the worst free agent signings ever.
And that's going to be a dead asset.
He is awful. And they're going to have to find a way to...
Maxey's good, though.
Yeah, Maxey's good. Jared McCain, who they drafted, is good. He also tore his meniscus early in the season, is out for the rest of the year. So he would have been Rookie of the Year this season, most likely. So, yeah, they have had a disastrous year, and it is going to set them back very, very far because they're not going to be able to get off of some of these contracts, I don't think. Somebody might be willing to take a risk on Paul George, but you're taking pennies on the dollar.
And the guy who orchestrated the disaster is going to be asked to fix it.
Can I give you a hot take? I haven't heard this anywhere, so I'm gonna put this out there.
All right.
There's a chance the old maid is on the move this summer.
To Philly?
Paul George for Bradley Beal.
No.
I could see it because Ishbia is an idiot, and the Sixers are going to be desperate to get off of him, off of Paul George. I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think even though the problem is Bradley Beal is too similar to Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain, they have high-scoring guards.
And I'd probably take Paul George over the old
would.
maid,
Oh, absolutely,
honestly.
I would. Absolutely, I would. But if behind the scenes they recognize Paul George is washed or he doesn't want to be there anymore and they want to start a rebuild and they feel like they might be able to get whatever last asset, this Jazz draft pick that the Jazz traded for their unprotected first, maybe they would take on, Bradley Beal and a first or two. Because Daryl Morey's a wheeler and dealer. Daryl Morey loves a deal.
That would be a Morey deal.
He thinks he can get the old maid and work it.
Maybe it'll work for us.
Yeah. So that's going to be my hot take. I'm seeing it now.
Okay.
But
mark it. Ben called it today.
So three really bad teams, though. You're right. Dallas is a disaster and is trying to tank now. The Suns have been bad all year and just 8-30, 20, and 20 from Nikola Jokic on Friday.
Well, the fact that Dallas was in the finals last year...
But everybody
and that
did
their
think
wounds are self-inflicted, although Philly's wounds are self-inflicted too.
This conversation with
The
Philly,
Suns?
though, over the summer was that, this is a team that's going to be a title contender.
We've got to make a push.
You've got a really well-fitting big three. Paul George is a good defender, all-star level player. Joel Embiid, when he's healthy, is an MVP. And Tyrese Maxey is one of the best young guards on the rise in the league. And they had kind of filled it out with some decent role players, and now it's all terrible. And worst-case scenario... Again, if they don't end up with the 6th pick or better, their draft pick goes to Oklahoma City. And just the fact that they're not going to be able to climb 5 spots, 3 spots this late in the season, they're going to be right there at 6 or 7, hoping nobody leaves them.
And they hired that comb-over, Nick Nurse.
Who's going to get fired this summer?
Well, yeah, he's not a rebuild guy.
Yeah. And
He's a win-now guy.
Hates him. It's the rumor.
Well, you just told me Joel's going to retire.
They'll still take Joel's corpse over Nick Nurse.
Over Nick Nurse. All right.
He's had a bad 2 years. So, there's a couple of teams out there that are in really bad spots. And they all went weirdly all in strange ways.
Outside contender, the Pelicans.
Yeah, really bad year.
Really bad.
Yeah.
They were supposed to take the next step or whatever. Now they're blowing it apart.
Yep, and trying to probably get off Zion this summer.
Probably should.
Yeah.
All right. What's number 2?
Number 2, Max Hall 2.0, but without the beer this time.
All right, let's play the sound.
But I hate Utah with a burning passion.
Hate Utah with a burning passion. Now, we missed the first part of that where he said he personally liked several of the players. But then drops in, but I hate Utah with a burning passion, Ben. Now, I'm old enough to remember when that sentiment created weeks' worth of content on sports radio.
Yeah.
But here we are waiting. Do we have the whole thing? Let's play the whole thing.
I have a lot of friends. Shout out Hunter Erickson, Caleb Lohner, Jake Walling. They're like some of my best friends. But I hate Utah with a burning passion so much.
And then
who was that?
I love Media Laugh in there. Trey Stewart.
Do we have his box score up?
Yeah, give me a second. Hang on. Why do you have to blindside me with these things, Ben? What, are you saying he probably had a good game?
You must if you're talking trash like that, right?
9 minutes.
He put a bagel on.
Bagel on the board.
Oh, interesting.
An assist, a steal, and a block.
Oh.
That's what I said, Trey Stewart.
How did Max Hall play in the game when he said that? Quite well, right?
No, his numbers weren't great, but he threw the game-winning touchdown.
There's a difference there. There's a difference when Max Hall goes out there and impacts the game and Trey Stewart, you said a donut, he Tony Snelled him.
But he's a senior. I mean,
Sure.
He's the type of person that the rivalry means something about. My whole point for saying all this is it was stupid then, and it's stupid now, people making a big deal out of it. Who cares?
Yeah, of course.
There's a
nobody
guy,
cares, yeah.
BYU got to win. They lost to the Utes earlier in the year. Avenge.
Correct.
It's what the rivalry's all about. It's not a big deal.
Right.
And stuff gets blown out of proportion on sports radio and the snap talk and all that stuff. Max Hall, he just included more detail.
And to Trey Stewart, like, this isn't some mercenary who came in. He's been at BYU all 4 years of his career, right? Like, he's been there.
Right.
He's played Utah a lot.
And so I don't care how badly he played. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is what is great about the rivalry. And I've always said it's not hate. It's sports hate. It's something entirely different.
Correct. In fact, he named players he likes on the team.
That he personally likes, but he likes beating his rival.
Yeah.
You don't say. And I don't know. It gave me like, I saw it and I kind of laughed, and it just gave me Max Hall PTSD because people like who say, oh, he hates blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, get over it. Get over it. It's part of what makes it fun. It's part of the inner neighborhood rivalry between Utah and BYU. It's part of what makes this radio station great is the relationship between these two, that it's college sports.
I don't want to open up a summer can of worms of some, very nothing going on question for sports radio, but it feels like the health of the rivalry is really good right now, right? I thought the basketball rivalry was good this year on both the men's and women's side. Utah beat them at Utah. BYU beat them at BYU. Utah got a half-court buzzer beater on the women's side to beat them in overtime. New coaches that have come in. Excitement about Alex Jensen. The football game was one of the best football games we've had in this rivalry in some time. So I think it's a healthy spot. I think it's a fun spot to be in, and this stuff helps.
A long time ago on a show where it was during when the Pac-12 started to fall apart, and there was all the Big 12 was lobbing grenades, according to George Kliavkoff. And you asked me what my personal best outcome would be.
Yeah.
Not what's best for everybody involved, but me personally, what I wanted to see. And I said BYU and Utah back together in a league.
Yeah.
And that's why. What you just laid out there is exactly why. The rival, of course. They played, how many times did they play in basketball this year, Ben? Twice.
Yeah.
And it mattered in league standings. How refreshing is that? I wish the football game were at the end of the year, but guess what? It mattered. They were in the same league. They didn't play it in the first month of the year. It matters
and
again.
it wasn't a quote-unquote distraction.
No. And this sideshow of Utah fans rubbing Independence in BYU's face and all this stuff. It's back on the even playing field. They're back together. And maybe some Ute fans out there are, which I know you exist, and I'm not hating on you, but lamenting the Pac-12 and dreaming for its existence still. Well, I think it's really cool that those two schools are back together. And yeah, maybe you missed dragging the independent BYU football program, and that made you feel good about your fandom. But it's better. It's better that they're in the same league.
And you know what? The losses are going to hurt worse, and the wins are going to feel better.
Are going to be better, and they're going to matter again.
Big 12 tournament starts tomorrow. Utah, the 11th seed, they're going to take on Central Florida, the 14th seed. They lost last time these two teams matched up, which is when Craig Smith got dismissed. Wednesday, BYU fans, you're watching Iowa State versus whoever wins between Oklahoma State and Cincinnati, and whoever wins that game will play BYU coming up on Thursday. So BYU's got a bunch of time off. Again, to your point, sometimes you don't want necessarily all this time off. This is more a college football conversation in the playoff, and all the teams that got byes did not play particularly well. But the Utah women also got a bye in the Big 12 women's tournament and lost in the first round to an inferior opponent as well. So sometimes there is something to having played maybe not 3 straight nights by the time you're playing BYU, but I would assume it's going to be Iowa State BYU on Thursday night, and that's going to be a great matchup. That was a great game the last time.
It's considering the lack of import of the conference tournament, it's better to get as many byes as you can. Because you know what? Honestly, it doesn't matter if BYU wins the tournament or not. And by having the byes, you know what it does, Ben? It eliminates the opportunity for a bad loss. If you heard Ken Palm on this morning, he said the only way Utah State doesn't make the tourney is if somehow they boot it to a team like Air Force in the conference tournament. That's the only way, because a bad loss will sink you. BYU ain't getting a bad loss.
No, that's the good thing.
And winning, how many games in a row would it take to drop out of nowhere? 4? Is that right?
To get into the tournament?
No, if you were to win the conference tournament without a bye.
Oh, 5?
It'd be 5, right?
Yeah.
Which is pert near impossible.
Yeah.
Even winning 3 games in 3 nights is brutal.
Yeah, it is.
So BYU's in a good spot. But the best spot is they don't care, really. You don't have to win the conference tourney.
You're right. They're in the tournament. They're going to be a 5, 6, 7 seed right in that range.
In the WCC, if you didn't make it to Monday, you were in real trouble from the selection committee standpoint. You know what I mean?
I think that's a good point. On one hand, BYU got a terrible draw because they're going Iowa State to Houston. If they beat Iowa State, I mean, those might be the 2 best teams, honestly, in the conference. I know that's not how they got ranked, but that might be the 2 best teams.
It's not conference record, but like Iowa State's pretty much a 3 seed, everyone's saying.
But if you lost to Iowa State, fine. Iowa State's really good. It's a 3 seed. If you lose to Houston, fine. Houston's going to be one of the 1 seeds potentially, probably a 2 seed, but they're going to be up there as well.
It's not like you booted it to Portland, and now they're like, wait, what?
Right. But if you beat one of them, now you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
It improves your
No,
resume.
they're in a terrific spot.
Yeah. So I'm excited to watch. I'm excited to experience the Big 12 tournament on this level. I know BYU played in it last year, but this is even a whole new set of teams when you sprinkle Arizona.
But do you think somebody poured beer on Trey Stewart's family?
I hope somebody kept tradition. I'm a traditionalist. I like tradition, so I hope somebody did.
Did you believe the beer story in the first place, or were you a beer conspiracy theorist?
I was a beer denier.
You were a beer denier?
I was a beer denier.
Your reasoning?
It's a lot. That takes a real psycho to waste a beer. To pour it on somebody's family.
I've seen worse at those games.
Sure, someone at Utah threw a water bottle and knocked out the cheer coach or whatever it was. Like, yeah, there are clowns everywhere. So I certainly there's a huge possibility it happened.
My skepticism only came from I've known a lot of people that sneak booze into stadiums, and like 99 times out of 100, it's booze, not beer. Most people don't sneak beer into games because of volume, for one, and then...
Correct. It's not very efficient for you non-alcohol drinkers.
Right. And, like, getting a can in is more difficult than you'd think.
Yeah, agreed. Right.
So that's where my skepticism came from, not the lack of willingness for Ute fans to be classless.
Sure. You don't think it's a humanity issue. You think it's a practicality issue.
My thing was, right. Now, if he said, like, somebody poured, like, the last part of a bottle of wild turkey on me, I would have bought that.
But he's got to be careful. He can't be too specific. It was this
you can't know the
vintage.
Brand. Some sort of brown liquid.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Number 3, 3 points out of the second wild card spot. Utah Hockey Club back in Salt Lake City tonight against the Maple Leafs.
Tough loss to Chicago, but they beat Detroit the night before, so it wasn't dire, but Chicago is not a good team. You did get the point because you went to overtime. Bedard hit the game winner, or shot the game winner. So tough for Utah Hockey Club there. They would have loved to get that extra point. Everyone's going to matter down the stretch here. But second night of a back-to-back to take 3 out of 4 on that run. But tough news, Connor Ingram leaves the team to work with the NHL and the NHL Players Association. It sounds like he just has not felt right since losing his mother. And that happened last year, remember, and I mean the earlier this season, but late last 2024. He was grieving his mom, took an indefinite leave, came back, still had a bunch of up and down performances, and says he just recognizes he's not right. He's just not 100% where he needs to be. And that's tough for him, and I think everyone says their best to him. And on the ice, it's difficult because Karel Vejmelka can't play every night.
Yeah, right. I mean, it hurts the team.
So Jackson Stauber's going to have to step up and have a big game, and he's just not been in a lot of these situations before.
But in all honesty, unions are controversial, right? And I get why. But this is where unions can be really good.
Absolutely.
Take care of your union member when they're going through it. It's kind of the major part of the purpose for it. So I'm glad to see that it's happening. And I'm sure the club is working with them too. But you get what I'm saying. I'm glad there's some sort of avenue for somebody who's going through life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
And
may we all be so lucky. Good for him.
He's taken departures before because he's been diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, which he is treated with alcohol, which is don't get in that trap again. Right. If you recognize something's wrong and you've seen the issues that you've had to deal with before and how you've dealt with them improperly, go deal with it the right way. That's better for everybody.
Agreed.
So
what? The Utah Hockey Club has to go find another goalie to play on back-to-back.
2 or 3 games. Yeah, right, for the rest of the year.
They'll figure it out, and we hope he does too.
Also, Yusuf Alamaki tears his ACL out for a while, but he hasn't been playing. So,
all right, stay tuned. We'll have more coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
Alex Jensen heading back to Salt Lake City to take over the reins of his alma mater. I'm sure the conversation was, I'll take this job and I will win games for you at the University of Utah. I'll get the crowd back. I'll do all of this stuff, but I'm going to need this. And I don't know what that dollar amount is, but it's got to be significantly more than what Craig Smith had to work with.
If I'm Alex and I'm fully honest as I'm sitting in the office with Mark Harlan, I'm saying, you realize if you just gave Craig Smith all this and you put it into a roster next year, you realize Craig could probably win, right? Well, yeah, but it's the image thing. We need you. NBA guy, okay, then I'm going to need this. So this is actually really good news for the University of Utah fans because I do think Alex is smart enough to do that, knowing that he can't do it unless he's got the players, and players are expensive nowadays.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. What's that? Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
1, 2, 3, move it.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Nominate the Youth Sports Volunteer for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week. Sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals. Ben, apparently Daryl Morey is saying that Sixers fans are only fueled by anger.
Yeah, Philly.
Yeah, it's Philly, man.
Yeah, right. That's the whole thing. That's their reputation.
Yeah, you won a game that you shouldn't have won, so bet the fans have been out of shape.
Yeah, they were down 32-16 early. I bet fans were excited about that. Here's the problem. Okay, this is kind of interesting. They didn't invent the tank. Teams have been tanking for a long time. But they invented the process, right? Uh-huh. This whole idea that they're going to go through the process of losing. I mean, gosh, I'd love to go back. I'm going to pull it up really quick and just look at how many seasons in a row they did just the 12 wins, 18 wins.
It was like 5 or 6.
It was crazy.
It was long. Because you think of the draft picks, not only Embiid, but Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, Nerlens Noel. Who was the stiff out of Duke that they drafted? Okafor.
Jalil, yeah. So they went 34 wins their first year. This was deconstruction. After they go to the Eastern Conference Finals and lose in 2011, 2012. That's the lockout year. They win 34. Then the next year they win 19. The next year they win 18. The next year they win 10. The next year they win 28. And in that process of 4 years, they fail to get, well, it's really 5 years if you look at the 34 where they missed the playoffs as well. Their 5-year stretch that they missed the playoffs, they must have averaged 19 wins, maybe a little bit fewer than that. But yeah, they really did this thing the Jazz are doing right now for 5 straight years. They got Joel out of it. They got Ben Simmons out of it. They got Markelle Fultz out of it. Should have been Jason Tatum. They actually really did have success as far as pick quality goes. Player quality, they did not.
Oh, they booted all of those.
Okafor was a 4th pick or the 3rd pick. I think they should have taken Kristaps. Am I even right in that draft? They did get Joel, which was good, but physically unable to play.
No, that's a success, though. You can't take that away.
Yeah, he got an MVP.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he got an MVP. Ben Simmons did not turn into the superstar they hoped.
He booted that.
And then the Markelle Fultz trade is one of the most infamously bad trades in NBA history. So they went through this entire process. But again, back to my point why I got started on this. Once you train your fans to value this, it's what they're going to always think is the right option.
Oh, I don't know if Philly's a good example of that, honestly. I get what you're saying, but they're just negative.
They are just negative.
Philly fans just like to, I mean, there's a joke on it, and always something about Philadelphia, that they just like to bang on teams.
And, of course, it's the batteries, it's Santa Claus, and this is what they've done historically. We recognize that's the point. I do think you can worry about that, to the point where I saw people saying, as you have jokingly said, the Utah Hockey Club should be tanking. Why? Because people are being accustomed to tanking games as the way to get to the top.
Why would they win?
So if that's what the Jazz are doing, which, by the way, I think is a fine – it's what the NBA process is. It's what it rewards you to do. The Jazz are doing the right thing this year. Whether you like it or not, I think the Jazz are doing the right thing. If you want to disagree, I would listen. But conditioning people to feel like, well, that's the only way to get better, I think is also is false. There are lots of ways to improve your team. Right now, this might be the Jazz's best pathway. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, it probably shouldn't be.
All right, at the beginning of the tank for the 76ers?
Yeah.
2013, Michael Carter Williams.
Okay, he won Rookie of the Year. They traded him that summer.
And then was out of the league in 3?
He didn't play a ton of time.
Then they get Joel in 2014.
Yeah.
2015, they had the 3rd pick, Jalil Okafor.
Team him with Joel. That'll make sense.
After already having Ben Simons in 2016.
Simmons, but yeah.
Markelle Fultz in 2017. Noel was in here somewhere too. I don't know why it's not on this list. Mikal Bridges in 2018, but that ended up going to
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
They must have traded for Nerlens on draft night. I think they did from the Pelicans.
And then we get into kind of modern history where they did get Tyrese Maxey with the 21st pick. But during the actual process, they booted every pick but one. So the Jazz better get it right. Long story short, if you want to take a Jazz lesson out of this, if you're going to take a whole season, you better hit a home run with the pick.
And the truth is, that doesn't have to be Cooper Flagg. Odds are the Jazz have an 86% chance of not getting Cooper Flagg. So you better get the best player otherway.
Yeah. You got to get a guy. If you boot the 3rd pick on Jalil Okafor, I mean...
You know what's crazy? Even more painful than that era or that run of 5 missed playoffs, 5 years of missed playoffs in a row. In 2017, again, they get the number 1 overall pick. That was a year they missed the playoffs. They traded for Markelle Fultz instead of taking Jason Tatum.
Well, they had the 3rd pick, and they traded up to 1.
So they should have taken Tatum. The next year, they drafted Mikal Bridges, who's awesome. Like, he's a Knick right now, and you could not love how much they paid for him. He's a great player.
He is.
He's a really good 3-and-D player. They drafted him on draft night. His mom, I think, had worked for the team, had worked for the 76ers, and they traded him on draft night for a guy who's might have lasted 1 year in the NBA, 2 years in the NBA. I mean, absolutely killed themselves, Zaire Smith, for a horrible trade. They had, I mean, can you imagine if your front court next to Joel Embiid was Jason Tatum and Mikal Bridges? you literally would have won 4 titles. Honestly, you would have had an unstoppable defensive front in the front court, not to mention a great scorer in Jason Tatum and an MVP in Joel Embiid. And they booted both of those. So they had it all laid out for them.
The Fultz deal is so bad.
And this isn't the Jazz, passing on Kawhi for Alec Burks, which is, a bad 50-50 that they absolutely lost on. Should have taken Kawhi. These are players they had and traded. These are players that should have been on the board for them, and they traded, they could have taken Tatum number 1 overall. They moved off it. They did have Mikal Bridges. They traded.
Avoid the disastrous decision.
Yeah.
Really. The home runs are important. You got to hit on some, but man, avoid the disasters.
Your disasters are just as hurtful as the wins are good.
Yep. All right, stay tuned. We'll have more coming up next. It's Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Ben, the Jazz are tanking, and they're going to try and get the number 1 pick, and that likely number 1 pick is Cooper Flagg. Would you consider things like if he had a stage parent per se, would that affect your opinion?
Lisa Wilson, famously.
Yeah.
No.
No? Okay,
there's nobody worse than this didn't necessarily work out, but LeVar Ball is the worst parent we've had in recent history. And, his kids have kind of made it.
Well, define worst.
Have you guys seen the Baby Gronk stuff?
Yeah, the Baby Gronk stuff. I haven't paid attention
That's
for a
the
couple
worst
years
dad
now.
in history. That's horrible.
Listen, LeVar, undoubtedly a success story. Controversial, sure. But he got Lonzo drafted, too.
He did.
And
right,
Lonzo's a huge bozo. No, that's unfair. Because I don't know, he might not be a bozo.
No, Lonzo's
on the floor.
He's well adjusted. LaMelo's awful.
He's just another guy.
Yeah,
he got Magic to take him too.
Yeah,
and basically determined that he was going to the Lakers. I mean, LeVar is borderline a genius. The fact that we even know who LeVar Ball is pretty wild. But maybe LeVar you would view as a red flag because at very least he's a distraction.
Well, look, NBA teams thought that Kyle Filipowski not having a relationship with his parents was a red flag, which was an enormous mistake. Kyle Filipowski's
he's doing fine.
He's going to be one of the 15 best players from this draft easily.
So Cooper Flagg's mom, Kelly, was caught on camera at the Duke UNC game, and you could tell she was yelling after Cooper dunked on someone. On his bleeping head.
Oh, good for her.
So she's yelling that. Okay. She goes viral. And, obviously North Carolina fans are bent out of shape. She looks like she's having a good time. So she responds, Ben, with a long snap talk that I'll just read a portion of here. It was being so proud of your kid and also an FU to the entire Carolina fan base for being classless a-holes. If you're a UNC fan and didn't like it, tough, and then a poop emoji.
Okay. I did see that she was mad at North Carolina fans.
You could just leave it. I was cheering for my kid. You could probably leave it at that, right? That sounds to me like you're begging for attention.
Yeah, never make it about you. I'm pro LeBron being a good dad.
But that's the family red flag I'm talking about.
Sure, I'm pro LeBron being a good father. I think LeBron is probably truly a good dad. Him jumping around at his kids' games, running onto the court is too much.
Or yelling at Stephen A. Smith over a hot Bronny take.
Yeah, right. I get it. Protect your kids, love your kids, everything like that.
You're making it about you.
Your son's 20 and he's in the NBA now. You don't need this to be about LeBron anymore. And correct, Cooper Flagg, love to cover him one day. Love to meet his wonderful mother at the draft introduction. It's about Cooper.
You just needed to say I'm a passionate fan. I got caught up in it, and I didn't know I was on camera. So
yeah,
go Duke or something like that. You don't need to be waving around the classless a-hole tag.
Yeah. Yeah, that's reserved for BYU and Utah players talking about each other.
Exactly. I don't know. I think whoever gets the number 1 pick is likely going to take Cooper Flagg number 1, regardless of his mom. But I'm just saying that's not a good sign. We shouldn't know moms for anything else other than like big hugs on draft night.
I do like that mom knows the lingo of like she's tapping her head, which is, the shot clock violation, but that's not what she's talking about. That her son dunked on somebody and she said on his bleeping head.
Yeah.
Wow, Mom. I like that she's engaged.
Hey, I got no problem
Mom
with the on the head thing. I've got no problem with that.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't like the word she yelled, but you know what? She didn't know she was on camera. It's not her fault. It's
her
fine.
son's a high school. Her other son's a high school kid who's obviously a big recruit as well, but not going to be as good as Cooper most likely. That's funny. You got to be careful with stage parents. There is I shouldn't get into it. There's a prominent one right now that I'm curious about. See how it plays out.
Really?
Yeah.
Who?
I will tell you off the air. I wish I could say it. I don't want to, and I shouldn't have even brought it up.
Christian,
but I saw it firsthand, and I'm curious what it's going to be.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Christian, were your parents stage parents? In any way, shape, or form? You know what we're talking about, right? I mean, maybe they come to your football games or something.
Todd Marinovich.
Yeah. Not necessarily like during games, but my dad used to, like in Little League, he would, be the dad like bugging the coach like, hey, my boy's got to be getting more playing time.
Oh, nice.
But thank goodness he never did it like during the game. Like I remember I had this one game where there was a dad in the stands like yelling, like, my boy should be in there. Thankfully, my parents didn't take it that far, but.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being a high school coach.
Oh, no.
I can't even imagine what you have to put up with being a high school coach of anything.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially now that parents are donating like more money than ever because there's more money in all of sports, not just because the culture trickles down, unfortunately. So now you got to put up with that. I'm sure it's just something.
Shout out to our guy, Trevor Allen, who just accepted a job as an assistant coach for West High basketball.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
I don't want to be his email box.
Yeah, assistant coach especially. The new assistant coach is a very tough spot to be in.
I can't imagine what you have to put up with. But anyway, Cooper Flagg's mom is a passionate supporter of Duke basketball and her son, and not a fan of the Carolina Tar Heels and their classless fan base.
I'd like to see her at Jazz games. That'd be great. I would love if Cooper Flagg landed in Utah. Whatever that comes with it. Trey Burke had a notorious stage dad.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any on the Jazz right now. There's some people who are around. There's some families who are around.
Gordon Hayward's parents were pretty actively involved.
Yeah. Not quite like that, but.
Like that?
Yeah.
Like that?
I think, speaking of assistant coaches, it gets interesting when we're talking about Alex Jensen, who we've touched on a little bit so far, and what his staff should look like. The hard part for Alex is he's been removed. Well, we were talking about whether he should retain anyone from this current staff. And I said, you should keep at least one. Have some sense of continuity. But I guess if none of the players are sticking around, and I don't know who is sticking around and who's not, he probably doesn't know yet either. They have some targets I'm sure they'd like to have stick around. The hard part is he's been in the pro game a really long time.
10 plus years now, right? 12 years? 12 years?
Plus the G League.
The G League too.
Yeah.
I mean, that is an eternity.
I mean, if you think going back to when he was at St. Louis, I mean, Rick Majerus was alive, right?
Yep.
So that's been forever. So along those lines, what connections do we think he has at the college level? Because it's actually not that common, maybe more so now. We are seeing it. Sacramento Kings head coach just left to go join Florida State, right? Kevin Young left Phoenix to go to BYU. There's not a ton of examples of guys leaving the pros to go to college. It's not super common. It's not completely unheard of. It's not super uncommon. I would just imagine Alex Jensen doesn't have that many connections at the college level, which is why I would keep somebody from the Utah staff around, just who knows how the tools work, knows where the bathrooms are on every hallway. That doesn't mean he's going to do it. And I'll be curious how he fills out his staff that way because, again, he's just been surrounded by pro guys for a long time.
Well, he at very least hasn't been going to the AAU events in Vegas.
Yeah, hasn't had to. I'm sure he's loved not doing that.
And now there's agents involved. So he doesn't know who the agents are, doesn't know the connections.
Right.
It's not his fault. It's just not his world. And it's not Andre Miller's world if that's who they end up bringing in.
A little bit more just because he's done G League. So he's probably talked to high school coaches from like kids who skipped college to go to G League, but minimal.
Minimal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not, he's not necessarily as the coach in the G League. He's not necessarily like fielding the team. There are other people that do that.
My first thing if I'm Alex Jensen is I'm trying to get off Under Armour.
Oh, they should have been trying that forever. I think
Whit to get to become an Adidas school or whatever.
Whit likes going to the Preakness too much.
He does. Whit's the biggest celebrity in the building every time he goes to Under Armour. Alex Jensen's like, I need players.
We need players, and Under Armour doesn't have them.
Kyle, it's cool that there are great defensive tackles lining up to go to the University of Utah that go to whatever school, Cypress or Alta or whatever school locally that will fall into your program. That ain't happening with 6'9" bouncy centers that I want to come play at the University of Utah, and they aren't interested in playing for Under Armour.
They've been taking
Adidas
money
kids
from Nike since they were 13.
I need kids that are at the Hoop Summit.
Yeah, we gotta be a Nike school like now. And then Whit says, "Well, I don't get all the free stuff," and then it's not as much money, and it's like, well, Under Armour's bringing us nothing. Nothing.
I'm curious to see what those relationships look like. You saw Morgan Scally on Twitter, of course. Welcome Alex Jensen. I don't think they were at school at the same time. There's no chance they were, right?
No, Morgan was later.
A little bit later. But that era of former Utes coming through now and becoming the coaching staff could be interesting to see what the direction they move that and what kind of culture that sets to have some younger names, assuming that you're still going to see Morgan take over as the head coach when Kyle Whittingham retires. Which I would just say anything's possible. You never know. But I know he's in line, but that doesn't mean anything necessarily to me. Teams will pay a buyout if they have to get a buyout. So I'm just curious to see what this next culture looks like and how Alex Jensen fills out that staff, because having people who know how the machine works is really important.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they should have hired somebody yesterday.
Unless you really think because money is now in college basketball, you can run it like a pro system and you can run it like a pro team and you're just going out to get players however you have to, and you're going to have X amount of dollars to work with. Unless you really believe that that's completely changed the DNA of college basketball, and maybe it has, and it's happened so quickly I haven't even recognized it. But I would want at least a couple of college people around. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a retread. It doesn't have to be Burgess, which Burgess has been an excellent coach throughout his career, but that's kind of always the name everyone goes back to. I would want somebody.
I would too. I don't think selling the pro thing has quite the weight that everybody thinks it does. I don't think that's, for example, what's working at BYU.
It's not the only thing working at BYU.
It's not the only
certainly.
thing working at BYU. So you can say, oh yeah, we're going to money this and fundraising that and whatever. I don't think Utah's ever getting to where their contemporaries are. Not in basketball.
It's hard
because they're going to spend that money on football.
It's hard to be number 5 or 6 or 7 in a conference. It's really hard to be number 2 in a state.
Right. So what are you going to do about that? That's the crux. I think that's success or failure right there. Because, I mean, I could think the way to experience Lake Powell is through a, giant luxury houseboat. But who can afford that?
Yeah.
Not me.
So you got to find a way to make it work.
So I got to get basically an outhouse on pontoons.
Yeah. Which works.
Which does work and may or may not return back to the marina.
I don't think outhouses have flushers.
I've seen one of those almost
Jake's
not
does.
make it back to the marina once.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh?
It almost was sunk. Like people jumping off it because they thought it was going down, sunk.
Yeah.
But it survived, kind of. All right. Stay tuned. We'll have more coming up next. It's Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is DJ and PK.
It's time to talk basketball with David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz.
I'm worried that they're going to win too many games down the stretch to get themselves
I agree.
lowered.
A terrible conversation to be had, but PK speaks the truth, baby. If you look at John Collins, Walker, Kessler, and Lowry marking on the floor again, I think they're +6, +7 per 100 possessions.
Right.
PK is not lying to you people. He never has. Let me talk to the people about Patrick Kinahan. He might have said things you don't like. He might have confronted truths you don't want to confront, but this man is authentic. authentic to his core. He's bringing you the honesty that you need from all people in your life. Find people and surround yourself with people like Patrick Kinahan who speak the truth to you, who do not just become yes men. Do not do that. Have Patrick Kinahans in your life.
Catch DJ and PK mornings from 6 to 10 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Who's got it better than us?
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jacob Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. You know what? Never mind. I'm not going to bring that up. Ben, we have updated injury report for the Jazz. Do we know who's going to be playing tonight in Boston?
Walker is playing. Colin Sexton is playing. Keontae George, who we just talked about, is actually out. He's got a foot bruise. Lowry Markin and John Collins are both questionable.
Give it a go at Boston. Figure you're going to lose anyway?
Yeah. Have everyone play Jordan Clarkson out, and he's got this plantar fasciitis. I don't know if we're going to see Jordan again this year. He's been out for a while now. And he tore it in his foot and came back and battled through it. And we'll see. But yeah, go give it a try. You did your job, honestly. You lost to the Wizards, you lost to the Raptors, you lost to the Sixers, you lost to the Pelicans. You've lost 5 in a row. You are currently a half game below the Charlotte Hornets, so you own the second worst record in the NBA. I don't think you're going to catch the Wizards for the worst record. In fact, I think you're going to probably overtake the Hornets eventually. Hornets are so bad that I think they're going to lose more games than the Jazz, even though technically they have an easier schedule. So based on strength of schedule remaining, Charlotte should win more games than the Jazz. I don't think that's going to happen. So yeah, go play Boston. Go throw everything you have at them.
The tricky part is a bunch of these teams have been resting players, their own players, against the Jazz. So it'll be interesting to see who Boston actually plays.
And Wednesday, Boston plays OKC. That's the big game on their schedule this year, right? I mean, honestly, this year, not just this week, not just this month, this year. OKC is the best team in the Western Conference. OKC is probably the most likely team to get out of the West right now. And Boston could be looking at a finals matchup. So who do these teams want to play? How do they want to play? It's going to have a ton of eyeballs. And rightfully so. It's a fun game.
Are you believing any more so in Cleveland? We watched a big part of the Cleveland-Milwaukee. In fact, we watched the whole thing last night while we were watching the Jazz game. And it was a funny box score because they beat Milwaukee handily, but you look at it, nobody had a good game.
It doesn't wow you. Yeah. They're really good defensively. They're great offensively. They're a legit team. I worry about this every team until I've seen them do it. I just doubt teams until I see them win a title. I doubted Denver until Nikola Jokic carried them to a championship. I doubted Jason Tatum until they won a title last year. I always do that. And it's probably a flaw of not having the foresight of, new teams win. New things happen in the NBA all the time. You got to be willing to believe it can. And I think OKC can win a title. I like how hard Cleveland plays. They play a lot harder, I think, than a lot of their opponents most nights. That goes away in the playoffs. Everybody plays hard. And so I wonder if that brings them back to the mean a little bit of, talent-wise, they're really good. We've seen a team when Donovan Mitchell's your best player in the playoffs. Donovan's a great player. He's a really great regular season player. He's put up huge playoff numbers. He can win you a playoff game easily. He can win you 2 playoff games in a series. If you were drafting a team in the playoffs and you were to combine the Celtics roster and the Cavaliers roster, I'm taking Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown over Donovan. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's crazy.
No. I think you're getting to the crux of it, though. I was trying to, and it's funny that you say that. I don't believe until I've seen it. Like I always have hated that argument.
Yeah, no, I think it's totally fair. It's a stupid argument.
I believe the Warriors could win a title before they won their first one. They just caught the league by, that's an obvious one. But anyway, that's not my point. My point is, where does the doubt in Cleveland come from? And let me explain where it does for me. And I actually, it falls right along the same lines as what you were talking about there. But what has made Cleveland extraordinary this year? What has been the difference between this year and last year?
Player-wise or Well, they
Whatever.
changed coaches, Kenny Atkinson,
Uh-huh.
and I think Evan Mobley's taken a big step forward.
But what is Kenny doing differently, or what? Evan Mobley? That's part of it. I would buy into that. The answer is Donovan Mitchell.
He's doing less.
Is doing less.
Yeah.
That his team is better because Donovan Mitchell is doing less. That's one of those weird things, right? Like, I'm really good, so my team should be better doing more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, on this show, I probably should talk less.
I disagree.
Donovan Mitchell doing less has been the reason that they're better. Donovan Mitchell doing less is the reason, not entirely, that Evan Mobley is better.
Agreed.
That Darius Garland is better. Donovan traditionally has not used this less is more mentality in the playoffs. So I don't believe he will do less when it matters most in the playoffs, and I actually think that's a bad thing. And I don't like that about the NBA, that this machismo, it's got to be me, I got to do it in the fourth, all this stuff. I think it actually hurts most teams.
Yeah. Well, to the point of what I was bringing up earlier, not to interrupt, but
no, you're good.
Who won Finals MVP last year? It's Jaylen Brown. Like,
yeah.
Jason Tatum wasn't that good. And you know what Jason Tatum didn't do? Say, I'd rather be dead than see Jaylen Brown win Finals MVP over me. No, they won a title.
Yeah.
Everything Jason Tatum has done is legitimized now. There's no, haven't done it yet. You know, there's no questions about him as a player. He's a top 5 or 6 player in the NBA. He's been on a finals team. He didn't win the MVP. It's fine.
And Jaylen Brown got the assignment to take Luka out of the series and did just that.
Yeah.
Earned MVP, and you're totally right. What did Jason Tatum do? Tip the cap.
Yeah, right. Great.
Way to go.
Happy to win.
Let's go to the parade. Good times.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the most obvious example of it is Scottie Pippen, right? Who pulled himself out of the game because Phil wanted Tony Kukoc to take the final shot. I mean, what do you care? Are you there to win the game, or are you there to prove a point? I always hated when Donovan went into the postgame, and Donovan did this a lot where he played off some sort of egregiously, arrogant take, but somehow played it off as humility, which always just bugged me. It's not his fault, but it is kind of his fault.
Right.
Where he would come in and do, after a tough loss, go, I'm the team's best player.
I got to be better.
I got to be better when it matters the most.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He'd say it all the time. You think oh, okay, he's taking responsibility. That's a good thing. But what he's doing is crowning himself the team's best player and saying, well, I alone need to lift us to greatness. And that does not fall in line with my philosophy of winning basketball.
Agreed. And usually it came after, he would miss a game-winning shot. It wasn't
Or they blew a lead late.
Yeah.
Because he had the ball the whole time.
Yes. It was rarely oh, I didn't get a touch or this or that, and that's why I think I need to be in this situation.
It was never that.
It wasn't that at all. Famously, C.J. Miles, when he played for Indiana, took a game-winning shot over Paul George, and Paul George went in and said, guys, I'm the all-star.
Right.
I've got to take that.
I remember that.
That wasn't what Donovan Mitchell was doing. Donovan would miss a shot and be like, well, I'm the best player. I got to play better.
I got to do it.
But really what he was doing was underlining the fact that he should always be taking the last shot.
Dude, do you remember that C.J. Miles shot? He was wide the freak open.
Course.
Paul George was wrong, too.
It was the right shot.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You got to take that shot.
You just missed it. It's basketball.
Yeah.
Paul George, I got a message for you. You've missed plenty.
Yeah, right.
I watched you get taken out of a series by Joe W. Ingles.
Right.
So, that mentality bugs me. And I'm super glad that you brought up the Celtics from last year, because that is a terrific, terrific example. You think Steph Curry was boo-hooing that Andre Iguodala won the MVP of that final? No, he doesn't care.
Right. He got
or
his
that
ring.
Kevin Durant won him the 2 years or whatever that he did? No.
Right.
He doesn't care.
Right.
It's a team sport. It's about winning. So if Donovan plays like that in the playoffs, I think they lose. If they play like they did against Milwaukee, as crazy as that sounds, and go back and look at the box score, you're going to be like, geez, everybody was just kind of okay. They beat Milwaukee by 20 on their own home floor.
Yep. They should go to the conference finals. There's no reason why Cleveland shouldn't be in the conference finals. They're going to play whoever. They're going to play, Chicago or Atlanta in the first round, most likely. Whoever gets in with that last play-in tournament spot. there's probably one better team, whoever it is. I can't even think of what the horrible East looks like. Maybe it's even Miami. That's just a tough game, tough matchup, but something like that. And
like that.
I'm going to stop saying like that because I don't want to repeat myself every time. And then they're going to play Milwaukee in the second round. They should beat Milwaukee, as we just saw yesterday, even though I think Giannis is the best player in that series. That's probably not enough in today's basketball.
You would say just like that.
But they're going to run into Boston, and they're going to have to be special.
Play it again, Christian.
Like that?
Donovan's going to have to know exactly how to fit that role. And I don't know if he does. I don't know if he's going to know how. Because push comes to shove, the guys who feel like they need to be the guy or have been the guy their whole life go into default mode. Yeah. Do you have the wherewithal, the experience, the trust, the ego to let yourself not be that person? It's really hard. It's a real challenge.
I would say if there was a play that summed up old Tyler Huntley with separated from new Tyler Huntley. Mm-hmm. Utah was playing in a bowl game, and I'm trying to remember who they were playing. West Virginia, I think, in the Dallas Bowl. But anyway, they were beating West Virginia. It was a play in like the fourth quarter or something like that, and they did a zone read in the red zone. He did a zone read in the red zone, and anybody could have walked into the end zone, right? He could have handed it to Zach Moss, and Zach Moss could have moonwalked into the end zone. But Huntley pulled it, had to shake like three dudes, and ended up making it into the end zone. And it's like, well, he really liked calling his own number.
He did.
The dude really liked calling his own number. He did. You can go look back at his. Hey, we all get a chance to mature, and man, is he a success story and absolutely learned the lessons. But you know what? Sometimes what's best for the team is to let Zach Moss walk into the end zone.
Yeah.
Sometimes what's best for the team, like if Cleveland's playing Boston, if they've got a shot, because Jaylen Brown's going to take Donovan Mitchell out of the series, it's going to be, you're going to have Evan Mobley overwhelm whatever Boston decides to do with him. And they're going to dunk on the Celtics until the Celtics do something else. But if Donovan says, oh, no, it's Don time.
Yeah.
Then they're going to lose. You know what I mean? Or let Darius Garland cook whatever guard Boston decides to lay off on him. It's not going to be Donovan. And I don't think he's going to do that. I didn't see that in Utah. Why would it change now?
No, and that's what he's going to have to prove. That's the growth, that it's not just a regular season adjustment. That when push comes to shove, he is and the Cavaliers have gone scoreless on 2 straight possessions in the final 3 minutes of a game 4, game 5 that you have to win to stay in the series or take a series advantage. Is he willing to get off the ball and not expected to come back, but recognize for the better of the team, because Drew Holiday and Derek White are going to trap him or whatever, he's got to move the ball. And then someone's going to have to hit a shot. Because Boston did. You can go back. Al Horford hit big shots. Drew Holiday hit big shots. Jason Tatum hit big shots. Jaylen Brown hit big shots. It's why they won a championship last year. You have to trust your teammates to be able to do that.
So we'll see.
We'll see. They're playing exceptionally well. They're going to probably coast into the best record in the Eastern Conference. It's very impressive what they've done this year, but they're going to be judged purely based on what they do in the postseason, and rightfully so.
If we ever get called into Nate's office, he says, "You guys had a bad show today." I'm going to say, "You know what, Nate? As the show's best co-host,
as the best radio guy here,
as the best host in this room right now,
Christian should have done more.
I got to be better. I gotta do it when it matters the most."
The toughest guy in the room is going to do the radio.
Yeah, that's right. That's this guy.
Yeah.
So I got to be better. What's the best way to humbly brag about yourself? Is it that? Because that has the feel of an interview question, like, what would you say is your biggest flaw? Oh, that I care too much.
Yeah.
I work too hard.
I work too hard. I hate being bored. So I like to keep my nose to the grindstone. Yep.
Hey, why do you think you guys came up short tonight? Well, as the best player.
As the best player. As the smartest man in the room, I'll tell you what we did wrong.
It's so funny, that stuff. People get away with that because, you're good at basketball or whatever. But think about it. If you're a teammate of Donovan's, aren't you like, we're here too, dude. We're playing. Bojan Bogdanovic is probably.
So many game winners. Yeah, what are you talking about?
You stink.
Here's what the playoffs would look like really quick. We can go to break. Cleveland would take on Orlando in the first round, which was a good first-round matchup last year. Orlando's at a free fall. They're a disaster.
Yeah, that's too bad.
If they beat out Miami, it's a real a real black eye for Miami, who I understand made a big trade, but Orlando's at a free fall. You'd have Boston going up against Atlanta. I hate to watch that series. That doesn't sound fun at all. New York, Detroit would be a terrifically fun series to watch because Detroit honestly might have a chance to win that.
Well, yeah, especially how many guys is Tibbs burned out by then?
Right, all of them.
I think he's already burned out Brunson.
And then Bucks, Indiana's fun because they haven't liked each other for a few years now. In the West, it would be Oklahoma City and the Clippers, which, give me Kawhi versus Shea. And Shea used to play for the Clippers in that trade, so that would be wonderful. Lakers versus Minnesota would be absolutely terrific. Though LeBron is hurt. He's got a groin injury. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. I bet they fall to 3, which sets up Lakers versus the Warriors, which would be Steph versus LeBron, which would be a very fun series to watch. I think the Lakers would win that, but I could be wrong. Warriors are good after trading for Jimmy Butler. They're 9-1 in their last 10. You're going to have Denver and probably, this says Denver, Golden State right now. Again, we're talking about the intricacies of LeBron at 2 or if he falls to 3. And then a fun series it's always going to be on NBA TV, but it's going to be fun is Memphis, Houston.
Nobody believes in Memphis, which is interesting.
Yeah, and they're good.
Ja used to be a thing.
Yeah, and if you look at, what a lot of people like to believe is your differential, which is how much better you are per 100 possessions, points per 100 possessions over your opponent, your offensive rating minus your defensive rating. They're second in the West. They're +6, which is a really dominant number. That's a high number. Now, OKC's +13 to give you a sense of how good they are, but +6 is a super high number. So if Memphis is healthy going into the playoffs, they should have a shot to make a run.
I don't know. Hookah Luka.
Hookah Doncic.
Hookah Doncic. You saw old man Horford stand him up the other night?
Yeah. Al Horford's just a heck of a player. That guy's had a great career.
Come on.
No, yeah, come on. Yeah, right. I'm with you.
Come on.
Luka's got to beat him. Luka can't get stood up by 95-year-old Al Horford at this point in his career.
How many jobs has Billy Donovan had?
Based off of Al Horford's career?
No. Like, Al Horford was in college so long ago.
Oh,
Billy
yeah,
Donovan was still at Florida. He coached at Florida for several years after that.
Yeah,
then he had like a 8-year run at Oklahoma City.
They're in Chicago forever.
And now he's in Chicago.
Still in Chicago.
Al Horford's still in the league.
Yeah, it's
like Luka should beat that geriatric.
Yeah.
With ease.
Yeah, with a calf injury if he has one. A lot of injuries going on right now. LeBron's hurt. Aaron Gordon got hurt yesterday.
I think Luka's problem is in the abdominal area.
Amen Thompson got hurt.
The what we used to refer to as the spare tire.
Spare tire.
Yeah.
Could be lungs.
The hookah.
The hookah.
Yeah. All right, stay tuned. We wrap up the show coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
Your show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
G-Bang!
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
What's that?
Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
1, 2, 3, move it.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Want to remind you to join Hanson Scotty G Wednesday at RGS Exteriors from noon to 3, 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. Shout out to Scotty G. We were just chatting with him in the break. The jazz producer, Jamil Hawkins, and he's been in town for a couple of years now, I guess, but he had never been up to see a game in Logan. And so Scotty G got him a couple of tickets. Man, basketball games at the Spectrum are fun.
Yep.
He had a big time. Logan's
Jamil's
beautiful.
fun.
Jamil's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was telling him before he went up there, it's like that's one of the sport environments in the state I think you've got to experience. You got to go see a game of the Spectrum. And I guess Scotty was telling me that it was spring break for the students, so it wasn't quite as spectrum-y.
Yeah.
But Jamil came back saying it was awesome. Anyway, Utah State should be in. I was listening to Ken Palm this morning. They'd have to really stub their toe.
Love that.
In the Mountain West Conference tournament. So, Ben, we should have 2 in, and then maybe UVU or
They're the ones
SUU.
I think
in?
Utah Valley. I think winning the regular season is an automatic bid.
No, it's not. They still have to win their league. Nobody has a regular season automatic bid. That's not a thing.
But yeah, they're the number 1 seed.
So, and we've seen them. They host the tournament, right? I think we've seen UVU host it and not make it before. We've certainly seen that with Weber State. God, that's a bummer. Go UVU. Go Wolverines. How are your T-Birds looking?
Not good, Bob.
Not good?
Not good.
Not good. Oh, that's too bad.
It's tough for Weber State to lose the coaching talent they have in the last 4 years, 3 years.
Oh, yeah. Randy knew what he's doing.
Randy was great, and then Jay Hill was great.
Yep.
They had a really good program there. They had two really good coaches. So to lose that and have to try and rebuild when it's just getting harder and harder every day is
and like
difficult.
long-term successful coaches, which I just don't think is going to be as common across the board in college sports, let alone at the Big Sky level. Who's the favorite in the Big Sky? We should look into that. Montana? That seems like it always is the case. Anyway, well, having 3 schools in, Northern Colorado's in first. Having 3 schools in would be awesome, but it looks like 2 for sure.
Yeah, Utah Valley would be great. Utah Valley gets an automatic bid to the NIT if they don't, by winning the regular season.
Which, by the way, I think is absolutely lame. In those leagues to have it, like, why would you even play your guys in November? I mean, talk about the regular season or the non-conference. Why would you play your guys in January? The regular season doesn't matter. You have to play well for 1 week in March, and that's it. Lame. UVU should get the automatic, and then the tournament should just be for fun.
It does feel like college basketball has sneaked up on me a little bit this year. Even though I feel like we've talked more college basketball this year than we certainly ever have on this show before throughout the season because of the Big 12, because of BYU, because of recruiting interest in BYU. I think there's been more reason to talk about it than in years past, but I can't believe it's March. I can't believe it's March 10th already. And, Sunday, Selection Sunday. We're going to have all this sorted out very quickly. The tournament starts in no time.
Yeah, it used to be a way bigger deal, but the West Coast Conference was really a hit for the BYU basketball program. It was. And then Utah really was good for, 10 minutes when they were in the Pac-12, but most of it was pretty
awful.
Pretty bad.
Yep.
So, I don't know. It hasn't been relevant here.
No, so I'm excited. I'm glad it's back. It's fun. I think Utah's going to continue to improve as a program.
Hanson, Scotty G are coming up next. Stay tuned. We'll
Thanks,
talk to you
Christian.
tomorrow. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.